It's the GIO Show.
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 The GIO Show. The GIO Show. The GIO Show.
Welcome to another episode of the GIO Show, broadcasting from home. I am your host, GOP, and with me today we have another special guest, I guess dipping into the world of sports broadcasting at Algonquin College and beyond once again. I've got a really good friend of mine, someone who not only I've worked with through my time at Algonquin, but someone who's really been a great friend to me, someone who I'd even consider a best friend, and someone who was kind enough to support me through the programs, of course had a bunch of good laughs with, and overall a great rounded guy. Not only a sports broadcaster, but also a host of a sports podcast. He is with a group of three other guys on the Trenches podcast. He is the legendary Matt Wilson. Matt, how are you doing?
What's going on, buddy? I love that intro. It's I haven't gotten an intro like that in quite a while, so I really appreciate that.
Oh, no problem at all. The least I can do for you, man. I can't express to whoever's listening how much I guess we've been through together, but overall great lad and deserves nothing less than that intro. But we got to, of course, get through that intro to get into the main interview. So, Matt, how did you get to where you are? You obviously, like me, radio broadcasting student. How did you get here? What's been the story so far? If you can wrap this in for our listeners real quick.
Yeah, so it's I know you had Ryan Woods on there last week. He's a year behind where we were. Of course, he started the radio a year after us, but very similar. I'd say pretty similar to his journey. Just been a diehard fan of all sports since a young age, and was able to ended up joining the radio program at some really cool people and got some pretty cool opportunities over the last 2 years. Of course, I'm sure we'll get into this later, but the way COVID kind of threw a wrench in everything in here towards the end, right? But it's it's been a good ride. It was pretty much just signing up for that radio program, and a lot of opportunities there early on, doing, of course, Raiders hockey, and then I ended up getting a chance to do some stuff with the Junior Sens last year. They ended up winning the championship. That was really fun. I was at the ballpark with the Ottawa Champions. Of course, they no longer exist, but that was our baseball team here in the nation's capital. I was at the ballpark with them all last year, and that was probably one of the best summers I've had. It was just so much fun, and the stories and that we have from the summer, I'm going to remember them for the rest of the time. It was a really great summer, especially because the team no longer exists. But yeah, pretty much just like any other student. I'm still only 19, right? So I think I got a lot of time, but I think a lot has been accomplished over the past 2 years, and I'm pretty proud of that.
That's awesome. Now, not only to add on to that, but you've basically almost dabbled in almost everything for in the worlds of radio broadcasting, at least in my opinion. As far as, like you said, for that age range, you've been on hockey games, you've been on baseball games, you've hosted a morning show for the longest time, a sports-related morning show. You're on a podcast now. It's really quite amazing how in such little time you've almost kind of got everything. You've almost got a checklist of stuff done. What's been your favorite thing you've done so far?
For me, Gio, definitely probably doing the morning skate in its first year. That was our morning show the Alfred Lee morning show you're talking about. It was a really good time. We had a pretty good group of guys there in our first year. Kind of fell apart towards the end of this past year, but we had a really good group of guys together, and it really helped getting those interviews every week. We had guys from Arizona State University calling to our show, which I'm always going to remember that. A couple really good interviews that I was actually able to book myself, which I was really surprised. And you know what? Here's another piece of advice. I know it's kind of going off topic, but if you ever want to get a hold of somebody, just send them a tweet, because that's how I got that contact with Arizona State. We ended up getting their two best players on, and fun fact, their goalie that we talked to last year, he's now with the Ottawa Senators, so kind of brings it closer back here to the nation's capital. But yeah, it's definitely probably the morning show, or doing the some of the social media stuff with the Junior Sens last year. That was a really good time. And even this year, there's a lot of ups and downs this year. It wasn't the best year in terms of, especially with the hockey team, because the playoffs had just started. This is when COVID-19 took place. But you know what? I don't have I don't have many complaints. It's been a really good 2 years, but for me, definitely it's either the morning skate back in his first year or working with the junior senators.
So that's awesome. And let's take a little detour back to morning skate. So through that morning show or podcast, whatever you want to call it, you've conducted some pretty cool interviews. What's tell us a little bit about that? How did those start up, and who are some people that you were able to talk to through there?
Of course, as I just mentioned, the two guys from Arizona State, Johnny Walker, who's a forward. He's actually their assistant captain. He's playing his senior year this upcoming year. Really good guy. That was a hilarious interview. To some of the answers, he was a typical, I don't know if you know what I mean, but a typical hockey guy, right? So that's what he was. I enjoyed that interview thoroughly, though. Who else did? Well, I'm trying to think of other interviews that we had. Well, of course, Davide DeCipio, who was our co-host, or one of our other hosts on the show, he had done a lot of work with the Ottawa 67s over the years, so he built those personal relationships with those guys. And we had, this past year, I actually wasn't there for this interview, but he was on the show, Jack Quinn, who's projected to go in the top 15 of this year's NHL draft. We've had, who else? We had Ty Felliber on, who's currently playing in the American Hockey League with the Texas Stars down in Austin, Texas, the Dallas Stars AHL affiliate, and he was a fantastic guy to talk to. He was just a typical Ottawa Valley. You could just tell he was from Ottawa, just the way he talked and the phrases he used, that sort of thing. He was, he was fantastic to talk to. And of course, we ended up interviewing the one of the best players in the history of the NHL, Dennis Potvin. He's won 5 Stanley Cups during his time in the NHL, and he became a broadcaster after that. He was voted one of the top 100 players in the history of the game. It was quite an honor to be able to speak to a guy of his stature and just talk about hockey was like back in the late 70s, early 80s when he was winning his Stanley Cups with the New York Islanders. So if you're going to rank them, it'd be tough. We can get back to that later in the interview, but there was definitely some really, really fun moments that took place on that show.
And to divert there, you mentioned also some work with the Ottawa Jr Sens, the OJS. What was that like, and what exactly did you do for them?
Well, last year I was brought in there during the playoffs because it was a big, because they actually won the championship in 2017-18. They were looking to go back to back, and Dante DeCaria, as you may know him, he's I think he's one of the more colorful alumni of the radio broadcasting program. He's actually done. You think, Gio, you said I've done a lot. I haven't done anything compared to him. He's, of course, a couple years older, but he's done he's been to Toronto, he's been out west, he's worked in the United States, that sort of thing, right? Well, anyways, he brought me in and asked if I could do some stuff for their Twitter and Instagram to take some video and that sort of thing, and I did that for the playoffs, and I had a really, really good time doing it, that I actually went back and wanted to do it again this year. Last year was definitely, I'd say it was a lot more fun than this past year. This past year, as I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of ups, there was a lot of downs, just in terms of the team on the ice and off the ice for us, the broadcasting crew. But it was being on the ice right after teams won a championship. It's definitely one of the things I remember the most, and getting that video. And one of the videos we actually posted onto Twitter had like 35,000 views in like 3 days or something like that. So I thought I was pretty proud of that. And yeah, it's all about building the brand, and I think we've done that. We have almost 1,000 followers on Instagram. We started with about 500, and on Twitter we're up near 4,500 followers. So it's all about building that brand, and I think we've done a pretty good job at that. Me, Mason, Dietrich, Davide, DeCipio as well. Everybody that's worked on the feeds there over the years.
You're quite the social media man. If I will dabble in that, you've you mentioned that for the show you've worked on social media for your show, The Morning Skate. You worked on social media for OJS. What is that like? Do you think, what's a misconception that someone has with working social media for that kind of stuff? And would you say it's different from what people imagined, or would you say it's exactly what people imagine?
See, the thing for me is that all the feeds that I've run, we haven't had that much interaction with the community. Like, you don't have people tweeting stuff at you 24/7. Like, I can't imagine what it's like to run an account of one of the big 4 professional sports teams. Like, if you're running the Toronto Maple Leafs Twitter account, or if you're running the New York Knicks Twitter account, that sort of thing. So I don't really know. In terms of misconceptions, it's couldn't really give you the proper answer of what that's like, because I haven't ran an account at that big of a stage. But people do say that it's only interns that do social media, and I know for a fact that at the professional level, that's a full-time job, and you can make a really good living doing that, right? So I think that's probably the biggest misconception, is that it's only interns that do the Twitter feeds and that, because it's really not, and it's a massive industry, and it's something I'd love to get into eventually. Still pretty far away from that. Especially, that's the thing, right? I don't know if we're going to get into this later, but COVID-19's throwing a complete wrench in the sports world, right? And just people not hiring, that sort of thing. A lot like the majority of social media staff, for example, have been furloughed or let go over the last couple of months just because teams aren't able to afford to pay people and there's no games going on, right? It's a really tough time in the industry, but yeah, it'd be an amazing start with the Red Blacks at 67s. That'd definitely be a place I'd love to start, but in the future, you never know. It's wherever life takes you, it takes you, right?
Or you actually worked on a lot of baseball broadcasts for the Ottawa baseball team. Now, they currently, sadly, as of now, they don't really exist.
No, that's a long story. Do you want to get into it?
Oh yeah, let's get into it. Definitely,
we can get into it. So the Ottawa champions, they were around from 2015 until last year, and every year it felt like the team might not come back. It's just the ownership wasn't that stable. Not many fans went to the games, that sort of thing. But every year up until last year, they kept pushing through. And last year, the team only made the playoffs once in their history, and the one time they did make the playoffs, they ended up winning the championship. So go figure. That was in 2016. But last year just felt different. I don't know what it was, but towards the end of that year, everybody within the front office and everybody within the organization kind of felt like that was the end. And, well, it's because they're the owner of the team. I'm not going to say his name, but the owner of the team, he pretty much said, I'm done. If nobody buys the team, I'm out. The team's not coming back, right? And he owed a whole bunch of money to the city of Ottawa, and it was just... It wasn't good there towards the end, but it was just so much fun being around a baseball clubhouse last year. That's one thing I really, really did enjoy. And looking back at it, as I mentioned earlier in the show, it's memories I'm gonna have for the rest of my life. Just working in that press box, a lot of really good people that were working there, and a lot of good friends that I've made throughout doing that. But the best part of doing, you know what? You mentioned working on the baseball broadcast. Well, the thing is, I did some of the broadcast stuff, but I also helped official score the game. So it was kind of funny because I kind of had an impact on what happened in the game, because say a ball gets hit to shortstop and it takes a bad bounce and skips by him, I could help make that call if that's a hit or an error, and that affects the guy's batting average, that sort of thing. And it was really fun to learn how to score games, and I ended up doing the scoreboard there as well for the fans in the stands. Quite frankly, I really enjoyed last summer, and even if COVID-19 was never a thing, we wouldn't have had a team this summer, but who knows? Next year, let's hope a team's back in Ottawa and we can be back at our CGT Park. That's the hope for me, but yeah, I'll never forget working with the champions last year.
That actually brings me to one of my questions. I was going to ask, what do you think are the chances of the champions returning? Because I personally think that with this kind of depletion of sports, with COVID, I think there's a high chance that someone would be crazy enough to bring them back. Because, I think we've lost so much that we're just going to have such an overload. I think we can see them back. What do you think?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's just looking at everything that's gone on. For me, the chances were 50-50 before COVID-19. And I was just looking at ownership, having capable ownership, right? And, of course, the people that own the Red Blacks and the 67s, Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, they were looking at coming in, putting some money into the team, redoing the stadium up a little bit. There was a fella from Winnipeg, actually, who owns the Winnipeg Gold Eyes of the American Association. That's the other independent league out west. He was looking at doing something. It's going to be really interesting to see, though, because right now, I don't even know what I put the chances at, because minor league baseball might not exist at all next summer. And that's, if you're looking at the baseball hierarchy of the champ, they were an independent league team, which means they're not connected to any MLB organization. Well, Major League Baseball, the highest level of baseball you can get, they want to cut a whole bunch of their minor league teams. Just say, you're not, just goodbye. And all those players will be left out of jobs, right? So that could either be a good thing or a bad thing for independent baseball, because independent baseball can say, we're going to take all these really good players that got cut from the minor leagues that were connected to the MLB, right? That's an option. Or, of course, people just don't think minor league / independent baseball is viable anymore, right? So for me, it's going to be really interesting to see. I'd still say it's 50-50 for next year, but who knows where we're going to be at in terms of COVID-19 come next season, right? That's another really big thing.
Definitely. And I mean, even to add on to that, if I am 100%, I'm not 100% sure what this is, but I believe the CCHL, as kind of mirroring that, they are aiming to have their season start October 1st. And I'm not sure. I'm a bit worried. I'm a bit skeptical about that actually happening. What are your thoughts on the CCHL starting up again?
Well, as somebody that was at the league's only playoff game in Brockville, March 11th, it's that same night everything kind of shut down and the world changed. That same night we were in Brockville on March 11th. It was a Wednesday night, actually. I remember every detail of it. Yeah, October 1st, that's it's not very far away. Because what day are we today? We are the 20th of July. Once you get to August 1st, it's 2 months away, right? So we're just over 2 months away from October 1st. And, of course, teams need to have their training camps. A lot of teams still haven't been approved. Ice is starting to open up in the nation's capital, which is good in terms of just people being able to go skate and, especially the pro guys, like the guys that are playing in the NHL, Hub City, Stanley Cup playoffs next week. All the local guys like Cody Ceci, John Gabriel, Pedro, Claude, they were able to skate there a little bit earlier. But, yeah, if I'm going to handicap the chances of the CCHL coming back, I'd say probably 75 to 80%, because in terms of them, they don't necessarily need to have fans in the stands to support themselves, especially compared to the Ontario Hockey League and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. I just actually read an article about the Q today. But, yeah, if I'm going to handicap it for the CCHL, I'd say it's 75 to 80% that they will be playing October 1st. It's just a matter of when they can get these guys into camp. And especially there is some American players in the league. It's a matter of getting them up here as well. It's going to be really interesting. But in the end, it's really COVID-19 which controls when these leagues will be starting back up.
Interesting. And I think another thing now, I don't want to turn this into a conspiracy theory show. And I don't want to... They're saying that around the time of the flu season, which will be, I think, around September,
Second wave.
Going to be the second wave. So it's like October right after September. So I'm not sure if that'd be... I'm not trying to say I want it canceled, because you know me, I love working on those broadcasts. I would jump at the chance to work on another one, but I'm not sure if it'll actually be happening. I'm not.
Yeah, it's of course the BCHL, the BC Junior Hockey League. They what they pretty much said is, the BC Hockey League, it's the BC Junior Hockey League. What they said is December 1st, so they pushed their start back already. It's going to be interesting to see, because, of course, up in Canada, we've handled COVID-19 so much better than they have in the United States, and it's case in stone. The Toronto Blue Jays, they're unable to play their games in Toronto this summer due to the way COVID-19 is in the United States, and they'd be traveling back and forth. The Canadian government said, no, you're not playing here, right? That's case in stone. And this virus has been going on since March. That's when the first outbreak really happened across the planet, and it's you know what, Gio? As I said, I think you should be skeptical. I personally think they're going to be playing, because they're not going to have, I don't know if broadcasters be at the games or that sort of thing, but in terms of all you need, it's the two teams, the coaching staffs, and the referees, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting though. I really have no idea.
So we'll continuously keep a watchful eye on what's going to be happening with sports. Definitely, once we get some updates on that, I definitely am going to be grabbing Matt Wilson and a lot of our other sports friends of the show to discuss that. But let's change the subject now to something I briefly mentioned in the intro. But right at the moment now, Matt Wilson, and it's been a bit of a while since you've started this, but you've been a co-host on a new football podcast. The Trenchers. How has that been, and how has it been kind of doing a sports news podcast despite there not being that much news, because you've started this show while there's been a hiatus on sports? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the thing about our show, the Trenchers podcast, is that the NFL, we're mostly talking NFL. We'll be talking a little bit of CFL if they do end up playing this year, but a lot of people, in their opinion, think the NFL offseason is a lot more interesting than the actual play. And, of course, the NFL, they haven't been affected yet by COVID-19. They might be affected here in the next couple of weeks. They're supposed to be reporting to training camp. But I think it's been great. And it's been, I think it might have been one of the best times to start a show like that. Of course, me, Nick Anger, Mike Sark, and another Matthew Vernon. I think we've done a fantastic job early on. Our listenership isn't quite there yet, but we got to start promoting ourselves. And we do have a lot of stuff planned for when the actual football season does start. But yeah, it's... See, that's the thing. See, we stopped the morning skate the week before COVID-19 happened. Because we did a show, actually, I was listening to it the other day. It was just me in studio by myself. The week later, the next Friday, is when COVID-19 had pretty much shut everything down. So that was our last show. I could not imagine doing a hockey show throughout these last couple of months. There just hasn't been that much to talk about, right? But in terms of football, it's been pretty active and it's been pretty wild, and I've really, really enjoyed it. And it hasn't really has not been as hard as you might think it would have been doing a football show without sports or without football, to be exact. But I'm going to be really excited for when the NFL actually does start, or if they start up this year. It's going to be so much fun to talk about that show, to do that show. We're going to probably do it every Tuesday when football starts, or every Monday night, because football games are on Sundays, and then there's the Monday night game, and then Tuesdays normally when we'd be releasing. I think we're going to start releasing on Tuesdays when football happens. It's going to be fantastic. So yeah, I've enjoyed it a ton so far, and I can't wait to keep it going. We've done 7 episodes so far. So
What subjects can we expect to see discussed in future episodes? Do we have, I know we should be getting another episode in a few days, I believe, but what can we expect from the trenches?
yeah, so we released episode 7 yesterday. Actually, we recorded it, and I do all the editing and that for the show as well, so we released that yesterday. But in terms of next week, NFL training camps are going to be opening. It's pretty much whatever's going on in the news, right? So it's pretty hard to say what's good, what we're going to be talking about in the future. But yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about training camps. We're going to be talking about the big thing about yesterday's show is actually talking about COVID-19 protocols, which the NFL really has not put in place, which is kind of scaring a lot of the players, which scares me as well, because without those COVID-19 protocols, how are you going to have a football season? So I'm trying to think of it's really weak. It's whatever the current news is, we're going to be hitting it, right? And when the NFL season starts, you can expect fantasy football updates. You can expect breakdowns from each game. You can expect just talking about rosters, depth charts, that sort of thing. There's going to be a lot of stuff, especially come September when football starts. But in the next couple of weeks, we're just going to be hitting whatever the breaking news is in the football world.
Last thing I want to talk about, maybe I might have to cut this out, but as we mentioned, you've dabbled in almost every corner of broadcasting, and you've even touched upon sports edits. You have a, might I say, an amazing YouTube account with over 1 million views almost. You have a lot of videos that have broken 500,000 views. Tell us a little bit about that. What's this little side endeavor?
Yeah, so you don't gotta cut this out at all. This is probably this was my heart and soul there for a while. I started Sports Mixes 39 my YouTube channel. I started that back grade 10, grade 11 high school. And my first video ended up with 130,000 views. And it was just a really poorly edited video. Like, it wasn't very good at all, but somehow 130,000 views in however many days, right? So I kept grinding out, and I hit big on the one video. I'll pull it up on my phone right now, and I can tell you what it's at. But last time I remember, this video was at 2.5 million views by itself. Let me see what I can see. We're at 5,640 subscribers, which isn't, well, it's okay, because I haven't released a video on the channel, like an actual video, for quite a long time. But if we're gonna scroll back to the I got it. Yeah, so we're still at 2.5. We're at 2.5 million views, and that, of course, that video was released 4 years ago now, but that was a Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry video. And the story behind that video, I think another reason why it has so many views is that those two guys, they were best buddies when they were kids. And then they went and they played at the same college together. They both got drafted by different NFL teams. Well, since then, they both actually been traded to the same team, so they're teammates once again now, like 10 years after they played in college. So I think that's the why that video has so many views on it. Looking at other videos, like just having 18,000, 25,000, 42,000, 112,000, that sort of thing, right? Like, it's surprisingly, it hasn't been that difficult to get a lot of views on these videos. If you make content that people want, right, they're gonna watch your stuff. And like, if I go out, like, I was cooking up a video the other day just because Major League Baseball, they're playing their first game back on Thursday after the hiatus. I have a bit of an MLB sort of hype video. I bet you if I post that, I'll get, I don't know how many views I'll get because I haven't posted in a while, but it's yeah, like and the thing is, for me, I've gotten a lot better at doing the videos as well over the years. And you can tell that, like, if you watch original videos compared to the ones you watch now, the editing's so much better. But it's just, it's felt like the viewership was better back in the day. So I don't know. It's been super. I haven't really focused on it over the last couple of years because we've been doing a lot of the radio stuff. But it's definitely there, and I plan to post a lot more on the YouTube channel coming up in the near future. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It was one of my favorite things to do way back originally as I got into this sports media world.
last but not least, let's end this off. I believe so. If you want to find Matt Wilson, I believe for the Trenchers podcast, their Twitter account is
Trenches_pod. So it's TRENCHES_pod. That's our Twitter account. We haven't posted much on Twitter, but that's gonna change here. Nick Ainger, our co-host, is gonna be doing a lot more Twitter stuff. You can find me on Twitter, Matt_Wilson14, and you can follow over on Instagram, MattWilson39, if you want your daily sports takes and whatnot. But yeah, it's lots of stuff happening, and I'm really, really happy we were able to do this, Gio. It's been a long time coming.
Awesome. And just want to again thank you, Matt Wilson, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And want to thank everyone out there for listening to this episode of the GIO Show. If you'd like to find more episodes of the show, you can find us on YouTube. Our account is GIOTV1, all word, GIOTV1. And you can also find me on Twitter. My @ is PETTI_GOGIO. And yeah, that's it for the show. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you again for Matt Wilson from the Trenches podcast for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed this sports-filled episode, and we will be back next week. Matt Wilson, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, just thanks once again for having me, and really, really enjoyed it. Really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.
The GIO Show.
GIO Show.
The GIO Show.
The GIO Show.
And Trailer Park Boys is the best show, and Gio Petty's the best radio host.
Students who live on a residence at Algonquin College somewhat have it to their advantage.